Way. It looks like we've reached critical mass. Welcome everybody to How-Tos for Developing a Pro Bono Program. This is co-sponsored by Association of Corporate Counsel National Capital Region and the Washington Council of Lawyers. The Washington Council of Lawyers is the public interest bar association for the District of Columbia. We're really delighted that you've joined us today. We've got some great panel presentations. I'm Pat McGlone. I'm the General Counsel of ULCO, and I'm a member of ACC NCR's Pro Bono Committee. First, a few logistics. Please keep yourself on mute unless you wish to ask a question at the end of the panel presentation or later during the breakout rooms when the Pro Bono Fair is underway. You'll have the best viewing experience if you select speaker view in your Zoom settings. We're going to begin our program with a panel discussion on in-house pro bono programs. We are going to save a few minutes towards the end of the hour to answer as many of your questions as we can. You can use the chat function to submit questions. In the meantime, at 1 o'clock, we will transition to the Pro Bono Fair portion of the program. You'll have an opportunity to select 4 different breakout rooms to learn more about pro bono opportunities for in-house lawyers in a variety of practice areas from a spectrum of legal service organizations, and there'll be some of our law firm sponsor attorneys participating as well. We'll conclude promptly at 2 o'clock. I want to introduce my fellow panelists to all of you. Each has a great deal of experience on our topic, and without further ado, John Marzullo is Assistant General Counsel at Capital One Financial Corporation, which has a well-established pro bono program. Siobhan Salmon is corporate counsel at Otsuka America Pharmaceuticals, which has a newer pro bono program. And Alyssa Saunders, who's the director of corporate pro bono at the Pro Bono Institute. And as Alyssa will describe for you, corporate pro bono has a number of resources available for in-house lawyers who want to engage in pro bono work. So, without further ado, let's get underway. Siobhan, your company's pro bono program is the newest of the two, and perhaps you can describe for our participants how Otsuka came to launch a pro bono program, your involvement in it, and lessons you've learned along the way.
Sure, be happy to. For us, we had great interest internally from different individuals who had done pro bono work, and so we knew there were a lot of individuals that wanted to participate in a pro bono program. For us, we wanted to make sure that, at the onset, that we had the time, the resources, and the capability to really kind of carry out a program. And so what we did was we created an initial survey of our team. And some of the questions that we asked were, what are the areas that you're interested in from a pro bono perspective? How much time can you contribute to a pro bono program? And then we kind of evaluated our team, right, which was me and another colleague based out of our Princeton office. And as we continued throughout the year, we got some help from one of our legal assistants. And it was really trying to create a program that could meet those needs that we discovered through our survey, but also realizing the capacity of our department and also the ability that we had as a committee to be able to generate those programs of interest.
Siobhan, how large is your law department, including both lawyers and non-lawyer professionals?
Our legal department is about 21 if you count, and then roughly if you count lawyers and non-lawyers, which would be paralegals and also legal assistants. We have about 13 or 14 attorneys, and then about 5 or 6 paralegals and a couple of legal assistants that really help us out.
Great. Alyssa, we're going to get into discussing some of the practical challenges in launching a pro bono program and operating a pro bono program in an in-house department, but perhaps you can give us at least an initial survey of some of the resources available through corporate pro bono to in-house lawyers interested in doing pro bono work.
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Alyssa Saunders, and I'm, as Pat said, the director of the Corporate Pro Bono Project at Pro Bono Institute. Pro Bono Institute, for those who don't know, is a national nonprofit organization whose mission is to support, enhance, and transform the pro bono efforts of law firms, legal departments, and public interest organizations. And our Corporate Pro Bono Project is devoted to working with in-house counsel on pro bono. We've worked with over 1,000 legal departments and ACC chapters over the years since our founding 21 years ago. So we've developed lots of resources, and our whole goal is to make it as easy as possible for you to engage. Some of the tools and resources that we have include a getting started guide that covers sort of all the steps that you might follow if you are looking to launch a formal pro bono program for your department. We have a business case for in-house pro bono if you're looking to make the case to your leadership why this is a great activity for your department to engage in. We have lots of sample documents like matter opening and closing forms, pro bono policies, engagement letters, template interest surveys to assess the interest of your department in engaging in a variety of types of pro bono offerings, short papers and infographics on everything from volunteer engagement to insurance, engaging staff, annual reports on pro bono participation, and much more. And we do complimentary consultations, so please do feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in any of those resources I mentioned, or in speaking about how we can work with your department to overcome any obstacles you might be facing, and again, just make it as easy as possible for you to dive right into the work.
Great, thanks, Alyssa. John, Capital One, in contrast to Otsuka, has a long-established pro bono program. You're a much larger department. Maybe you can describe for us how the program works at Capital One, and I'm particularly interested in your description to our members of the formal written policy that you have that governs pro bono activities and what you find to be the benefits of having some formality around written policy.
Absolutely, and thanks again for having me. I feel fairly fortunate in working for Capital One. When I joined, it was right at the time that we were undertaking a fairly large expansion of our business. I've been there about 15 years. Previous to my joining, Capital One was really centered in the Richmond area, and my understanding was that's where they focused their legal department and their legal pro bono program. It was very decentralized, meaning that individual lawyers basically engaged with organizations or with clients that they thought needed assistance. And there was very informal record keeping, there was very informal hour keeping, anything. So as the company grew, both in numbers and geographically, the decision was made really to have a top level group based basically out of all of our offices, representational out of all of our legal offices. It kind of was the policy setting body. And so from that central pro bono committee, then we have regional groups, of which I'm a member of the Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland area. We also have a group in Maryland, in Plano, Texas. We still have a regional group in Richmond, as well as one in the Northeast. And so in conjunction with this build out, we also, to align with our overall top line enterprise goals, we came up with a policy, a pro bono policy, which dovetails with corporate imperatives and of access and filling a need and identification of opportunities. And so basically from all that work, which arose about 10 to 12 years ago, we came up with a policy that basically is community focused. So our pro bono is community focused rather than kind of top level corporate focused. And what that does is that empowers the local committees to identify opportunities in where they live, in the communities where they live. and then we grow and nurture those opportunities while always looking for additional ones as well. And then there is coordination at the top, at the top level as to our efforts and whether there is any identification of resource overlap or whatever, that we could have committees helping each other, or identifying those clients that possibly do span regional committees. And so it's helpful, I think, to have a guiding purpose, in that given the size of our legal department, where upwards, I think, when you include staff, of 300 to 400 individuals. When it's that big, I think it does lend, I think, some structure and rigor, and does allow us to, I think, identify and deliver our services, as well as allocate our resources more efficiently. So starting with kind of a policy as well as a structure, then we implement it, policy structure at the top level, implement at the local level. And there's plenty of need, and the needs vary from region to region. Here, our clients here are much different, I would say, than our pro bono clients in Plano, Texas. And frankly, they vary quite differently from our clients in Richmond, which is only 100 miles away. So that's kind of a very brief overview, Pat, but it has morphed, frankly, from a very decentralized process to one that we gave rigor to, with a top level policy, and then empowerment at the local level to identify and grow pro bono opportunities.
Great, thanks, John.
Mhm.
Siobhan, I know you've got less formality around written policies at Otsuka, but tell me a little bit about the executive business level support and law department support for the pro bono effort, and how important that's been, or helpful that's been, to your program.
Yeah, I think for us, if we didn't have the support of our GC and the leadership within the legal group, it would be difficult to really kind of carry out a program like this. When you're in a small department that addresses a lot of broad scale corporate needs, resources become challenging. And so if you don't have buy-in, then you're competing with areas that, as a pro bono program, you may not win. And so it's really been great to have our GC, Karen Galley and others that are on board and participate in a lot of the activities. And I think that, leadership is twofold, right? It's participating in the activities, but also really being behind us and supporting us and making sure that everybody knows from a structural perspective that pro bono is something that the department is really interested in doing, including making it a part of our corporate goal, our, subline legal department goals. So that's really important for us.
Great. Let's talk a little bit about some of the practical challenges. I know that many in-house lawyers have a concern about malpractice insurance coverage for the work that they do, and oftentimes a concern about not being admitted to the bar of the jurisdiction in which the pro bono services would be delivered. So with respect to those kinds of practical concerns, John, maybe you can describe how you typically handle those issues at Capital One.
Absolutely. Malpractice is a very large part of any discussion, and it is covered under our corporate insurance umbrella for those engagements that are made in the name of Capital One, and that are consistent with our legal pro bono policy. So there clearly, if it's not an engagement that has arisen either from a committee idea, or either from or even from a top level idea, and say it's just an individual who wants to engage a particular client, typically there is a review at the committee level to ensure that it does fall within our policy. And if it does fall within our policy, then there's sign off, and malpractice insurance is available to that associate. So it was more of an issue, I think, when we had a more decentralized structure. But now that we really try to give us some formality around our programming, it's fairly straightforward. And I can't really think of one example where we had really any issue of a lack of malpractice coverage. And clearly there are discussions with our corporate insurance group when it comes time to place policies, and we always make it clear that one needs to be, malpractice coverage clearly for these types of efforts that exist outside of Capital One, outside of your normal duties of Capital One, but clearly are part and parcel of your job function.
Right.
You had a second question, Pat?
On bar admissions, on the fact that some lawyers are not admitted to practice in the jurisdiction in which their offices are located.
That is, I would say that is a fairly minimal concern for us. The lawyers who are based in Richmond are exclusively, or I should say almost exclusively, Richmond, Virginia barred, or hold a Virginia corporate counsel designation that does allow for pro bono representation. I am aware that there are certain organizations within the district that require DC bar membership, and that isn't as widely held. And we work with the partner organizations to ensure that we can either provide proper staffing there or partner with DC barred attorneys in the representation. But Pat, by and large, our attorneys in New York are barred in New York or New Jersey. Our attorneys in Virginia are barred in Virginia or hold the corporate counsel designation, which is frankly what I hold. I hold the corporate counsel registration that allows for pro bono representation. And then our Texas attorneys hold Texas bar membership. So it's not as big a concern because we are still fairly geographically narrow, I think,
Right.
in our efforts. And we
Right.
certainly don't undertake, or at least without partner assistance, undertake representations outside of those base geographies.
Right. Well, I can assure all of our in-house participants today that the legal service organizations that will be participating in the breakout sessions in the second half of our program have thought about and have tackled the issue of bar admissions and will be able to work with in-house lawyers to solve for that problem. But Shavon, how do you handle the malpractice insurance coverage issue at Otsuka? Do you have a company purchased malpractice coverage, or do you rely on the legal service organizations?
Yeah, similar to John, we also have malpractice insurance that we have that covers our attorneys. For us, the second part of that question that you gave, John, that becomes that's always an issue for us because we have such a small department and it's split between attorneys in Princeton and in DC. So we really try to take care of that on the front end when we are looking to collaborate with organizations, that the activities that we choose are those that allow for our attorneys to participate, regardless of where they are in terms of their physical location and bar membership. It's funny because for us, we didn't necessarily have insurance until we had an attorney who had to participate in a real representation of a client in I believe it was New Jersey. And while New Jersey wasn't necessarily concerned whether or not that attorney had malpractice insurance, we were definitely really concerned that that attorney did not have malpractice insurance, and it was a part of the requirements for being a part of the New Jersey bar. So that kind of was the impetus for us to begin the process of getting our malpractice insurance, and it worked out great because now we have full coverage for the other attorneys that are in multiple offices that participate across the board for us.
Great. Well, with respect to the insurance coverage question, I know from personal experience here at Ulico, when we went out to look for employed lawyers, typically it's called employed lawyers coverage for in-house counsel. it's really, as insurance liability coverage, liability insurance coverages go, it's not a very expensive coverage. So you should consider that for your organization, and most policies will cover the provision of pro bono services under the employed lawyers coverage. Alyssa, I wanted to ask you what you see out there among other in-house departments on handling both the malpractice coverage question and also the issue of a bar admission by the in-house counsel.
What we see as the most common strategy is that you can partner with a legal services organization that will extend their coverage to the pro bono volunteers. So you should always check this, don't assume it. But there are many, many legal services organizations, including some that you'll be able to meet with during the fair today, that do offer that. And so if there are folks out there thinking, we don't have our malpractice insurance in place yet and we want to get started, there will definitely be organizations that you can partner with to get that coverage. Down the line, thinking about getting coverage is a great option because it does just make more opportunities available to you, particularly if you're thinking about working with, say, nonprofit organizations that have come to your department through a different avenue. Maybe they're organizations that your foundation is already working with and you want to be able to provide pro bono to them, and you don't have a legal services organization as an intermediary. Then in those types of situations, having the flexibility of your own policy would be very helpful. And so we see some departments that purchase standalone pro bono policies, or more commonly add an endorsement to an existing D&O policy or employed lawyers policy. And then the National Legal Aid and Defenders Association, NLADA, is a membership organization that also offers pro bono insurance policies to in-house departments. And we also see that as another option, as well as self-insuring. That's also fairly common among departments. And then with regard to the bar admission requirements, as noted, many organizations, do have folks who are registered or in-house counsel, or non-locally licensed in-house counsel. So it is always important to check the rules in your jurisdiction. In Virginia, the Part 1 Virginia Corporate Counsel have what we consider at PBI to be a model rule, meaning that you have full authorization to do pro bono, subject just to the rules of professional conduct. However, the Part 2 corporate counsel registrants in Virginia do not have that authorization. That's something that we've been working with a number of departments to advocate for change there. So in that case, it's important to make sure that you are teaming up with somebody who is licensed. And similarly, in DC and Maryland, there are provisions that allow out-of-state attorneys more broadly, which would include in-house counsel who are barred in another state. There are pathways for them to engage in pro bono. There are commonly restrictions such as making sure that you're working under supervision of a locally licensed member of the bar, and or that you're working with an approved legal services organization or other approved partner. So it is always a good idea to check those rules and make sure that you're abiding by them. But once you're familiar with them, they're very easy to work with. And again, by working in teams, either within your organization or with your legal services or even a law firm partner, it's often very easy to address those requirements.
Great. I know that there's a common perception among in-house counsel, and I certainly have seen this in my own department, that pro bono work necessarily entails litigation, and that you often get the defense, well, I'm not a litigator, I can't go to court, so I can't do pro bono work. And maybe we should talk a little bit about all of the non-litigating pro bono work that is available for in-house counsel. In fact, some of the work that in-house counsel can do that's not litigating work, they're particularly well suited for. Siobhan, maybe you can describe for us some of the non-litigating opportunities that have been available for your lawyers And then John will follow up with that question to you as well.
Yeah, so some of the non-litigating activities that we've participated in are activities that help with clemency, for different boards, right? Activities that are more focused on transactional work, activities that may cross over to not necessarily be completely legal in the sense of helping to provide different educational services to individuals. Those are things that we tend to focus on. There are some activities that we do that that are maybe a little bit more on the spectrum of needing a little bit more litigation and the like as well too. But we focus on those activities that from a general sense are activities that can be mostly completed within a clinic, or that may not necessarily require a lot of outside of clinic work, that may not necessarily require a lot of long-term engagement. And that's part and parcel to kind of the time commitment with that we have, and some of those the ways we've addressed some of those fears that you talk about, Pat.
Okay. And John, I'll turn to you next, but because I wanted to also get to partnerships with law firms and legal service providers, maybe in your response, you can talk about some of the training opportunities and mentoring opportunities that your lawyers have taken advantage of when doing pro bono work, so that they're not sort of left on their own with the skills they already have.
It's a great question, Pat, and just to kind of put a bow on the whole idea that all of pro bono is necessarily litigation based. I think that is because a lot of the really higher profile pro bono efforts in the immigration space or in the appellate practice space are necessarily litigation focused or courtroom focused. I think there is a challenge that we have to overcome that. Our legal department probably is 40% litigators, maybe a little less than that. But there are plenty of non-litigators in our legal department. And there is a concern about putting them into, even though there may be some interest that they have, they're very concerned that, about their skills, their skill set, their knowledge in undertaking representations that may require an appearance before a court, a tribunal, et cetera. So there are myriad opportunities out there. We have identified any number. I happen to be aligned with the small business line of business in Capital One, and we have a very good partnership with the DC Bar pro bono area, where we offer advice to small businesses on any number of issues that might arise. It's a fairly short engagement, a couple of hours at most, and it's issue spotting and a lot of referral. But it does keep you on your toes and expose you to a lot of other areas or a lot of other practice areas that certainly don't involve an appearance in court. We participate heavily in the DC Schedule H clinic, which is a tax filing program for lower income people to obtain essentially a tax exemption from certain DC taxes. And so I think I certainly want to encourage people that aren't litigators, that there's plenty of opportunities out there. And for those that necessarily involve litigation or a court appearance, we typically do partner with either the legal aid services organization or a private law firm that has experience in those areas, and we'll match up one of our volunteer non-litigators with one of their in the law firm situation, one of their litigation people, and there is a mentorship there as well as a partnership in getting the representation successfully completed. So I think there's opportunities there as well. And most legal, in our experience, most legal aid organizations, certainly recognize that there is, the need in these representations to have a mentorship, a partnership, a resource for, um, uh, certain knowledge that, the legal aid service, the legal aid bureau has run across that necessarily a lawyer such as me that deals with lending would not have. So, uh, Pat, but it's an issue that we constantly, address, and there seems now to be a huge need for kind of the courtroom based pro bono efforts. And in that case, we really rely upon our litigators to help us with partnerships with external parties to help, the non-litigators, successfully manage the representation.
Right. To build on some of your comments, I know that each of the legal service organizations that are participating in the breakout sessions is conscious of that issue of lawyers needing a little bit of comfort around their own skill sets. And so they all have both mentorship and training opportunities to provide their volunteer lawyers with all the skills that they'll need to handle the representation. The DC Bar Pro Bono Center, for example, year in and year out, runs dozens and dozens of training sessions on a wide array of issues, oftentimes in conjunction with the other legal service providers in the area to make sure that the volunteer lawyers are up to speed, and also provide mentors to kind of oversee and work with and supervise the work of the volunteers. So be sure to ask the legal service organizations later today about the training and mentorship opportunities available. Let's talk a little bit about partnerships with legal service organizations and with law firms. Let's start with law firms. Allison, let me follow up with you, and maybe you can tell us what kinds of partnerships and how formal those partnerships tend to be between in-house departments and law firms, and what kind of advice you would provide to in-house lawyers for considering entering into those partnerships with either their current outside counsel or perhaps a new law firm to them.
We see partnering as a very common strategy among in-house legal departments. We do a benchmarking report every other year, and in our most recent one, of the legal departments that responded to our survey, 80% of those departments were partnering with legal services organizations, and 80% were partnering with law firms. And about 50% were actually partnering with other legal departments as well. So that's another partnership strategy for pro bono. So we definitely see it as a common strategy, and it can be a great way just to increase your resources and increase your impact by working together on a project. I think it's really important to have candid conversations with your partner, particularly in the law firm legal department relationship, in making sure that there's clearly defined expectations as far as what the partners are going to do and what each partner wants the other to do. In some cases, we've heard that when those communications don't happen up front, maybe one partner is disappointed or feels that they're not being able to engage in the way that they had hoped. So I think just having those clearly defined expectations can be very helpful. And then particularly for types of matters where a legal department might be less likely to have the resources, such as, for example, if you're doing a litigation type of matter and you're not regularly filing documents, being able to partner with a law firm that has a department that does that all the time, that can make it very easy for the in-house department to engage in that type of matter. So I'd say one more benefit that we see is so much of pro bono is done in teams, and being able to network and build relationships is just an added benefit of doing the work. And so we definitely see that as a very popular reason why departments like to partner with other entities in doing pro bono.
Siobhan, do you have ongoing partnerships with either law firms or with legal service organizations? And if so, can you tell us what the benefits of those partnerships have been?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we collaborate with a number of outside law firms. I think when we sat down initially to start the program, one of the questions was, okay, so how are we going to do this? And it was, well, how many law firms do we actually partner with, or do we work with, and what are their pro bono programs like? And so we went through a series of evaluating, the outside firms that we'd used and kind of the strength of their pro bono program, and so we work with them in terms of helping us determine activities that fit within the initial interests of our department to constantly feed us with programs that our team may be interested in. So we use not only we use that quite a bit. And I think what's also been an added benefit of being a part of the pro bono committee as well at ACC, being able to kind of have a sight into what other organizations are doing, and learn our team to let them know, hey, these are things that are going on. Are these things you're interested in? How can we incorporate ourselves into these particular programs? So we do that quite a bit. For us, our structure is that we have our core areas that we like to focus on, and we have a number of firms that we continually talk with that if a program is coming up that fits into those, will let us know. So it's an integral part of our actual programming, and it really helps us in terms of resources and really helping to organize programs and then execute them, because our department is so small that becomes a challenge, and so we try to use that as wise as possible.
John, at Capital One, I know you have some law firm relationships, and do you have any observations on like what kinds of things you're looking for your law firms to offer in order to make it a productive partnership?
It's part of our overall policy with external law firm management. We certainly do look at, I think, a pro bono aspect of that, and a lot of our initiatives with law firms, I think, arise from our pre-existing relationship with that law firm. For the most part, I can think of a couple that a lawyer, an internal lawyer, brought to the committee. And it wasn't really a law firm that we had any sort of relationship with, but we ended up partnering with them to do the pro bono work, and that existed um, uh, in the space of like will writing or kind of a trust in estate kind of work. Wills for first responders, wills for elderly people. But typically the law firm pro bono work arises out of a relationship that we already have with the law firm, and the individual lawyer who's aligned with that law firm relationship will bring an opportunity to the group, and we'll start from there. And so it will necessarily involve partnering, internal lawyers with the law firm um, associates to do the work. And that I'm aware of. We're doing a couple of things like that in the immigration space, and there was one in appellate advocacy that we explored. But those are necessarily longer term relationships, and the numbers that of people who participate in those, I think, is fairly low because it is a longer term relationship. And Pat, they can arise. Usually that's how they arise. It's just a pre-existing relationship we have, and then it's just a partnering arrangement between our internal volunteers and the law firms associates who were aligned against that pro bono effort.
Just as a addition to John's comment there, I think for us, we're so small that we're really nimble in the sense of, if you have a good idea in our department and it's for a program, we'll evaluate it, whether it comes from a firm that we work with continually, or it comes from someone who's on the board of an art program, or someone who's saw something that they thought would be great in terms of helping the homeless, or wherever it is, we kind of feed those into the program and evaluate them.
Great. I'm going to shift gears and talk about the legal professionals that we work with who are not lawyers. And I know in each of your departments, the non-lawyer professionals have had opportunities to contribute to the pro bono effort, maybe starting with you, John. What kinds of work has been available for your paralegals or other professionals who are not lawyers to become involved in?
We certainly attempt to offer opportunities for our legal specialists to participate in the pro bono initiatives, to the extent we can. It's necessarily a support role, but at the same time, they do certainly assist in document drafting and document review, client interviews, and they're really, but there always is a partnering with an internal lawyer as well. But we try to make pro bono volunteer efforts available to all of our legal specialists and administrative support personnel as well. And we found too that when we do advertise for volunteers internally for larger projects, we tend to get a lot of non-lawyer participation as well. And we try to accommodate that to the extent we can administratively. We don't typically get a lot of business folks volunteering in the legal space, but we certainly see a lot of administrative support, project management support people wanting to volunteer for, an initiative to assist the homeless, or an initiative to, to engage with school children, or an initiative to, there was one project, Habitat for Humanity, which had both some non-legal aspects as well as legal aspects. And so we certainly try to make those types of opportunities available to our non-lawyer personnel who are, integral to the functioning of our legal department.
Right.
And they bring a skill set that is complementary to our lawyers. So it's absolutely something that we think about a lot, Pat, and we try to offer those opportunities. There are opportunities, I can think of a couple of them in the district that we partner non-lawyers and lawyers together on a regular basis.
Great. Siobhan, I'm going to turn to you now, but I also want to remind our participants that we are going to open it up for questions in a few minutes. So have your thinking caps on about that. Siobhan, the non-lawyers in Otsuka's department, what kind of involvement have they had in pro bono efforts?
Yeah, so for us, we have the way we're structured is that our compliance, our ethics and compliance department is different from our legal department, and that may or may not be the same case in a lot of departments out there. And so our ethics and compliance department may consist of individuals who are non-attorneys who provide really valuable services and insight. And so for us, it depends on what we're actually doing, right, and who we're actually collaborating with. There are things that we're collaborating with, let's say if we're working with Kind, that while we might get more support on the back end from our non-lawyers, our non-lawyer participant, they can't actively be in the participation pool. But then there's other services like the partner program we worked with in Pennsylvania, where you didn't need to be a lawyer in order to provide the services. And in those cases, we open the participation pool to everyone that is in our E&C and our legal department to be able to participate. So it really depends on the particular program that we're doing at that time and what that program or those partners really require.
Great. Siobhan, let me stay with you for this next question. That is, what have you found now that you've had a pro bono program up and running for a few years? What have you found to the benefits to your department and to the people in your department to have been?
So just one correction there. We are almost at a year
Oh, okay.
of a
My
pro
mistake.
bono program. We are definitely babies in this. And I think that, we continue to learn and to iterate as we go to make sure that we continue to provide kind of the services and kind of provide an opportunity for our our team. And I think for us, there are some of the benefits is that from a larger perspective of being able to provide a space in the 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 8, depending on, what the day may be, we can provide a chunk of time that is donated to really the enrichment of the community. And, that goes a long way in terms of, allowing our attorneys to really, find a place that enriches them in that regards and helps them really feel good about what we're doing as a company and what we're doing as a legal department, and to really kind of show that it's not just about um the day-to-day client services that we provide. I think that's been a great benefit in terms of providing that time period to kind of detach and disconnect and to really focus on things that are outside of the client pool. I think also Alyssa had mentioned this, during our pre-call, is really kind of providing opportunities for people to partner with others, right? Partner with people cross department as we talk about our E&C department and our legal department to really kind of, partner with each other and to build teamwork and those kind of specific things. So I think that that's really been a great benefit to our department.
Great. John, Capital One, what have you found to be the benefits of having a pro bono program?
Oh, I think Siobhan laid out the benefits very nicely. I think there is a psychic benefit to, having lawyers be able to expand their their um their interests, or expand their work from, their day-to-day work, and engage with a client or engage with another lawyer in a totally different manner than they ordinarily would. And um, the surveys we get back indicate that people are very fulfilled by that, and they really, and we see, I think, a benefit in the whole idea that we're providing services to the underserved, or we're providing services to people who ordinarily, would not be able to obtain them, and we have the resources, frankly, to enable that. And all too often, um, our the financial services business in particular, you know, is one that, is very profit driven. And, when you can step away from that and, engage an individual who, who needs help with rental assistance, or needs help with, reviewing a will, or needs help with, a guardianship of a minor, or something like that, which are, these are very, these don't really have a tangent to typical, to an individual's typical legal practice. People find it interesting and challenging and stimulating, and those are the words that we get on surveys that we issue after engagements. And we find that our participation as a legal department is slowly growing. It's not where we want it to be, but we have a large base to work from, so it's necessarily difficult for us to increase engagement meaningfully. But we're showing that engagement is occurring, and there's so much out there so much need out there. So I think plus one to Siobhan's thing, and just to add on that, I think it's personal. I think a lot of people just find it personally fulfilling, and they enjoy doing it. They enjoy taking, that mental break from, their day-to-day work, and, engaging in something challenging and interesting, and, where they can see results.
Right.
Where sometimes it takes, results in a large corporate environment tend to be very long-term and very few quick wins, but you can really see results in a very time compressed manner, and in pro bono.
Right. Well, I like to remind my fellow members of the DC Bar that the rules of professional conduct actually strongly encourage every lawyer, to include in-house lawyers, to participate in pro bono activities. So no one is excluded from that obligation. Alyssa, I'd invite you to jump in on that last question, but I also want to make sure I've given you an opportunity to talk about the corporate pro bono challenge before we ask for questions from other participants.
Well, I think John and Siobhan laid out the benefits of doing pro bono very, very comprehensively and well. So I'll share a little bit about the corporate pro bono challenge. This initiative is now in its 15th year, and it is essentially a public commitment by a department leader, by a GC or CLO, to increasing access to justice through encouraging in-house pro bono. And we're working towards 200 signatories. We're getting close to our goal, and would love to have more departments sign on. Essentially, the challenge sets an aspirational goal. We use a participation metric that 50% of the department will engage in pro bono annually. So we use that participation metric so that you don't have to track hours. It's really just a sort of up or down, have you participated in pro bono over the course of a year. And again, it's an aspirational goal. Last year in our annual report of challenge signatories, 44% of departments were meeting that goal, just to give you an idea. So we see it as a way for departments to set a target. Many departments that are just launching a pro bono program or are relatively new to pro bono like joining, because it is a way to set a target and sort of challenge members of the department to get engaged, to get involved, so that the department can meet that goal. And then we just send a survey every spring to our signatories to ask them about their participation in the prior year, and prepare a report so that departments can see that data and benchmark against the industry. So again, would love to see your departments signing on this year.
Great, thanks, Alyssa. Well, if there are any questions from those of you dialed in to listen in today, I think you can take yourself off mute and just shout out and we'll recognize you. You can say who you are and what organization you're from. So feel free to ask a question now, or you could put a question in the chat function. To follow up on some of Alyssa's comments, John, can you tell us whether you do any time tracking by your lawyers and non-lawyer professionals? You track how much time people contribute to pro bono activities every year? Siobhan, I'll ask you the same question. Or do you have like an encouragement or a target that you ask people to try and shoot for?
We absolutely do track time. But our program is certainly voluntary and aspirational, but we do track time in conjunction with our corporate volunteerism efforts. And we do report out to both to the board as well as externally on our hours, and we set goals, and we benchmark ourselves to other similarly sized in-house departments who also report out. And so yeah, it's certainly it certainly has structure around there, and there is recognition involved too. We have quarterly events, and then we have an annual event, and people who participate in it are eligible to attend those. And we've seen that lawyers tend to be somewhat of a competitive bunch, so there is always a group of people who challenge each other to earn more hours than the last year. But we certainly do that. But it's voluntary. There's it's certainly not based into any sort of job requirement. But we do see once we started tracking, we did see a real picture of the effectiveness of our legal department efforts in the pro bono space. So, but it's challenging, and there's a lot of maintenance involved there. But I think it's well worth it. Yeah. If you have that attempt, because it does give you an insight as to where your efforts are most valuable and where they're, lacking, and you can try to improve.
We have a question in the chat, a related question about lawyer engagement. And Siobhan, maybe I'll start with you on this. What type of marketing do you do to recruit pro bono volunteers, and what have you found most effective at increasing participation?
So to answer the first question, we do not track the hours that our attorneys participate in pro bono program. To the second question, the question from Chad. So we'll create flyers. We'll do that in terms of marketing that kind of really describes what's going on. If that particular organization that we're working with has maybe a video, we'll include that in any internal marketing that we do. We find that to be effective. What also we do, because we're a small department, we do a lot of, hey, are you coming to the pro bono program? It's XYZ date, because we have it's smaller, so you can kind of lean on individuals a little bit more in terms of participation. So we found that because there's really a high interest and most of us are like-minded, we do get a lot of participation. What we found to work is that we tend to have activities on days that don't necessarily conflict with major school or holidays because that tend to limit your amount of participant. And then we also give our team members enough time, right? Enough lead time, because if they have enough lead time, they can place it on their schedule. And so it's less likely that you're competing with some of the business initiatives because the time will already be blocked out. One of the effective things we found is that we just kind of automatically put it on your schedule and you can opt out. And that's been, that's also been very
We tried
helpful. But then we follow up and say, hey, are you going to make it? And we keep a running list of individuals for those particular programs. So
Great. Well, I don't see any additional questions coming in. It's sort of last call for questions. I do want to encourage everybody to stick around for the breakout sessions with the various legal service organizations. I don't think you'll regret it. You'll really see what a bevy of opportunities are available for in-house counsel, and you can talk with folks about how to overcome some of the obstacles that we've discussed. You've already gotten some information about that. Do keep tabs on the webpage of the ACC NCR's Pro Bono Committee. Siobhan and I are members. Kathy is co-chair, I believe.
That's correct, yes.
Yes. So that's continually updated to tell you what opportunities are available for chapter members to get involved in pro bono work. And without further ado, Kathy, I think I'll turn it over to you to transition us to the next portion of our afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pat, John, Siobhan, and Alyssa. You guys have been wonderful. I also want to thank the Washington Council of Lawyers for partnering with us, and to thank everybody who joined for this panel presentation. And I hope that all of you will stick around for the fair that will start now. And